So Jesus finds himself being asked questions by his disciples, something that Jesus is very accustomed to, something that I'm sure Jesus probably at one point or another may have found himself wondering, good golly, how is it that they always have more to ask? This time around, the disciples are very curious about when God is going to reveal all those things that have been promised from so long ago. And Jesus does what Jesus is best at. He ends up using parables, using stories, using allegories to try to explain something to his disciples that they just don't seem to be getting. And Jesus starts talking about himself. Jesus is standing in front of his disciples who are asking when God is going to reveal all this stuff, and he says, about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. And here's the head scratcher for me. So Jesus is talking about himself, talking about how Jesus, the Son of God, is going to end up being revealed to this world. And he's standing in front of his disciples telling them this. And not one of them seems to stop and say, you're here. Not one of Jesus' disciples stops and sees that Jesus is talking about himself and is standing right in front of his disciples, talking about that time that no one knows will happen. See, I find it a little funny and a little sad that God can be fully present in the moment, and the disciples, and yes, even us, when God is present with us, can miss it. In fact, we end up trying to concoct all sorts of long, lengthy explanations for why it is that we don't physically see Jesus with us. In fact, there's entire book series about those things. Some of them might even be in our own church library. We get caught up on Jesus talking about the folks in the field and how one will be taken and one will be left, how the ladies who are grinding meal together, how one will be taken and one will be left, and we don't put the pieces together. We don't think about how in Matthew's own gospel, Jesus was walking by the seashore and he ends up calling fishermen. And only some of those fishermen end up getting taken from their boats. You know about the sons of Zebedee? Old Zebedee is left in the boat while his sons end up jumping ship and leaving him out in the middle of the water. They were able to recognize God's presence in that moment. But as they're sitting, listening to Jesus talk about that time that no one knows when it's coming, talking about how no one knows when the Messiah will be revealed, and yet here the Son of God is standing in their midst. Where in our world is God being revealed this day? Where are we calling out to see God's presence and failing to notice that God is already there? I think sometimes we get so caught up in wanting things to look just the way they're supposed to be that we miss it altogether. In particular, in this time of the year when our minds are so focused on Christmas Day, when we're trying to make sure that we've got all of the gifts ready to go, we've got our list of whose family we're going to be stopping by and all that other stuff. It's so easy to forget, to be caught up in everything else, and to miss Christ present with us through all of it too. Sure, we've been able to make it through the Thanksgiving weekend. We had the great Turkey Day, and some of us made it through Black Friday, and even some of us were probably out for Small Business Saturday, and we'll likely be going out for Cyber Monday stuff in front of our computers. But what about Salvation Sunday? What about that time where we gather to give thanks for God with us? A moment where we get to really allow ourselves to know that God is with us. To let God's peace and mercy overflow. And to not feel like we have to live up to any other expectations. To feel like we have to be doing certain things a certain way or be in a certain place at a certain time, but just be fully present in God's presence. Jesus says, "Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour." Every hour is an unexpected hour. Every moment that we get, every breath that we get to take in is a gift from God. And yes, God is present in it. And if God is present in each of those moments, if God is present here and now too, then take heart in knowing that God's grace is shining upon you. Take heart in knowing that the love of God is being poured out to you this very moment. And that by God's grace, all the moments that come next will be filled with God's reign. Thanks be to God for all of those unexpected moments and for a chance to know God anew this day too. Amen.